Hello and welcome back to the MacGuffin tapes. I'm your host, Michael, joined here as always by Ala. How's it going?
Hello. It's going fine. Still going through a bit of a detox period with films, which means not watching two films a day, but watching about two films a week.
Well, you're doing movie detox. I'm doing coffee detox, so it's incredibly unfair that you're drinking a coffee in front of me.
That's,
But yeah, enjoy.
that's self-inflicted. You're doing it to yourself.
That's true. And yeah, today we're here to talk about Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's latest movie. And we have to say we were lazy. We watched it at home on Netflix. It came out on Netflix Friday. Well, yeah, I was cozy here at home and watched the movie, so it was nice. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that watching a 2.5 hour movie, even at home, is lazy. I would say it's quite a commitment.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, the film was actually also shown at the Zurich Film Festival. So,
Hmm.
but was because it was coming out on Netflix, it wasn't like relatively soon as well. It wasn't our priority to see it. But yeah, now I'm glad we did. And we are kind of fast with our review this time.
Hmm. Yeah, so you said it was shown here at the Zurich Film Festival, but also I think at Cannes. And
Hmm.
then here in Switzerland, it also ran for I think maybe 2 weeks or so in the cinema. So actually, that's great because usually, for these Netflix movies, they don't have that long of a runtime in cinemas, or at least from what I remember from previous movies. So I wanted to start to talk about a bit about Guillermo's previous movies. Yeah, maybe something to note that this is, I think, his third project he's doing with Netflix. He had done
Third or
Pinocchio before,
second?
and I think you have seen the Cabinet of Curiosities,
Ah, yeah,
which
yeah, yeah, that's true. That would be, yeah.
I still haven't seen it. You recommended that I'd watch the Cabinet of Curiosities, but I still haven't seen it.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
That is very interesting, actually. No, but the Cabinet of Curiosities, I must say, I was really into it. Not all episodes are created equal in that sense, but well, obviously they all have different directors too. It's just the general project is Guillermo del Toro's project. But yeah, some of them are really, really cool, and I really recommend it. Generally speaking, I'm always a bit skeptical about Del Toro's films because I must say I'm not a super huge fan. Some films I do like and enjoy, some films less so. Like for example, a few years back there was The Nightmare Alley, which I kind of enjoyed. I don't know if it had like a great reception, generally speaking, but I enjoyed it. But The Shape of Water, that, as we all know, got an Oscar, but for the best picture. But a lot of people are criticizing it and criticizing this win as well. Yeah, that is one of those where I'm like, count me out.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about which movie I like the most of his, and I would say I like Pinocchio quite a bit. His sort of was it stop motion animation, I think. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen Pinocchio.
Okay.
Animation is not really my first choice.
True, true. And I saw Pacific Rim this year or last year, so fairly recently, something I caught up with, and that's a really fun movie. I think his first two movies, or at least Kronos, is one of his most well regarded movies. I haven't seen that one. The other one is Pan's Labyrinth, which I remember liking, but it's been a while since I've seen it.
Mhm. Yeah, same. I mean, he is very well. I don't even know how to point out what exactly makes me skeptical about his films. maybe partly it is the fact that they have a very specific atmosphere, and he creates his own worlds, which are not always my thing, I guess, because I mean, although they are all kind of in this Gothic realm, they still are quite particular within themselves. So like Pacific Rim and Pan's Labyrinth, obviously I don't expect them to have the same atmosphere. Um, but so yeah, I think maybe it's partly that.
Yeah, but it's true. He loves creating these worlds, and I was just looking here at his filmography. I mean, Hellboy is also a bit more towards the action genre, like Pacific Rim, but still it has this fantasy world where, yeah, where you're just submerged in it. And yeah, who's maybe I'm thinking like maybe like George Lucas is one of these other directors who creates these
Mhm.
huge worlds. Yeah. And he
But
really
George Lucas
enjoys it.
probably creates like similar, it's within the same universe, more or less, right?
Yeah.
But Del Toro's is like it could be different universes almost. It's
Yeah.
not all happening within the same kind of creative space, I guess.
The other director that I was recently making the connection that he is very similar in a way to George Lucas is Peter Jackson because he created like the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit, and after that he hasn't been that active anymore. So yeah, so those
True.
are like people who like
Yeah.
creating these worlds and get really into it. But well, Guillermo
I,
is more like a bit different in the regard that he does do different movies and genres, but always with his
mhm.
personal touch of like the creature design and set
Yeah.
design and so forth.
Yeah. I think in that sense he is more similar to Tim Burton, where they are more comparable because Tim Burton definitely has his own aesthetic and his own themes, and that are very similar to Del Toro's themes as well, like the kind of the otherness and just this monsters and the compassion towards monsters, and yeah, I think that is rather comparable.
Yeah, that's a great comparison, actually. Yeah. Didn't think of that.
In terms of the themes, I think we already said the theme of otherness, the monsters and the creatures and just the being different and being kind of not finding ways to communicate or being lonely in this world because of your otherness is just like this theme that goes through all his works, I guess, or the majority of his works. And that was kind of what I was thinking while I was watching Frankenstein, that obviously Frankenstein is a an adaptation of a classical Gothic novel by Mary Shelley, right? And that just got me thinking that by now, I feel like 50% of the films we discuss on the podcast are Gothic themed, which kind of makes us goths. No, but I was just thinking,
We have to
what?
rename the podcast.
Yeah, the goth tapes. But I was just thinking, what do you think, and what do I think, because I haven't found the answer yet, is the reason for this resurging resurgence of Gothic themes in recent films? Because I mean, the films that we already had on the podcast, so Nosferatu, Sinners, like it's more towards Southern Gothic, but still Gothic. Then there's also the new Dracula, Poor Things. This is all kind of in the same realm. Plus, of course, I mean, Nosferatu, Dracula, Sinners, this is all vampire theme. Then Poor Things and Frankenstein is the Frankenstein theme, the monster creation, the creator and creation theme. And my question is, why are we seeing this happening now in the recent years? What could be the reason for it? And yeah, I think I will leave it there for now. I have a lot more questions, but let's start with this.
How do you define Gothic or yeah, what's your definition of Gothic?
Let's actually check the exact definition of Gothic. So we are talking about the same things. Gothic fiction, sometimes referred to as Gothic horror, is a literary aesthetic of fear and haunting. I think the themes that you can say belong to Gothic is kind of alienation, isolation, fear and horror in general, I guess, sometimes the supernatural, or kind of this very, just generally the mystical sides of things. So not necessarily in terms of, supernatural, but also generally things that we don't look into. Um, for example, like social alienation and things that we try to not notice. I would say this is kind of the more gothic, like generally speaking, gothic themes.
Yeah, I don't know if there is like a, how did you put it, like a resurgent or like an upcoming or of Gothic movies.
Mhm.
Um, I can't think of too many movies in that realm that have come out in the recent years, but I think it's always a genre that it's part of popular culture, I would say. Maybe more
Okay.
so like these creatures like Dracula and Frankenstein. What else do we have? Yeah, you remember a couple of years ago, like Universal wanted to do like this series about the creatures, which didn't end up happening with the Mummy and
Hmm.
Dracula, and I don't know what else there was. But yeah, they're always part of popular culture, and those are yeah, interesting worlds to dive into. I think probably you mentioned like the was it alienation or that sort of the outcast theme that we also have a bit in this movie is I think something that we can relate to in this modern society, that we are a bit more isolated in some regards because of technology and stuff, that our way of interacting is a bit different. So maybe that's something we can relate to. Yeah, those are the thoughts that came to my mind just now.
I mean, I think still the films that I mentioned, so Nosferatu and Dracula, to take like the very least, already having two films that are based on the general lore of Dracula within 1 year is kind of a lot. So for me, there definitely is a pattern emerging that there is some kind of a, just a general wave of certain type of films. Plus, if you take, for example, of course, there are a lot of different vampire films coming out, every year there's probably at least one vampire film. Recently, we saw Renfield as well. I mean, I don't know how recent it is anymore, but let me see. 2023. So that was 2 years ago. I wouldn't necessarily call it gothic or count it as a Dracula film in the classical sense because it's more like the comedic twist. But if you think about the the kind of the films that are prominent this year or also taking the end of last year, quite a few of those films, it seems like, are vampire themed films. And this is not usually what happens to films of that nature. They're usually for entertainment, but this time they kind of got above and are in in the realm of really good cinema. So if we are talking about Nosferatu or Sinners, we already said that. I mean, at least for me, Sinners is the movie of the year plus one battle after another. So I don't think that happens every year that a vampire film scores so high on everybody's rating. And that's what kind of makes me think about that. Plus, of course, Poor Things is also one of the more important films of the recent years, and it has practically the same theme as Frankenstein, just from a different perspective. Um, Also, what I wanted to say is there is a film called The Bride by Maggie Gyllenhaal coming out next year that it is about Frankenstein's bride. So there is clearly some pattern for me, clearly. There is something going on.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe it's not so much the genre, and it's a bit of a coincidence that these movies are being made. I mean, the projects you mentioned, like Sinners and Nosferatu, are very personal projects to their creators or directors. But maybe because, yeah, like horror and like these creature movies are such a well-established genre, they are a vehicle for these creators to express some of the themes of I don't know what were the themes of Sinners. Yeah, also like outcasts
Appropriation,
and
yeah.
creation, culture, um, and maybe yeah, it's also a genre that leads to a heightened emotions, like for example Dracula, and it's also maybe a very visual genre. So
Well,
yeah,
also what I can definitely say is that I mean, it's not me saying it, it's also different other sources that I read and follow are talking about um, the resurgence of body horror, which we also witnessed in several films of the last couple of years. More specifically, Substance, I think, was what started this discussion and what kind of well, made it more prominent, I guess, but like in general, Titan and Substance, and now Together, I think the film is called, right, with Ellison Brie and Dave Franco, that is
yes.
also in the body horror realm. And I think this also overlaps a little bit with Frankenstein and the themes that it has in it, just like this kind of bodily otherness as well.
Yeah, the other movie that I think came out this year was this Cinderella adaptation, which is also a bit more, I think it's Norwegian or something, and it's about the stepsister. So one of,
Mhm.
not Cinderella, and it's also a bit body horror.
Well, if you think about it, Cinderella definitely is body horror in itself.
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree that horror is maybe not on the rise, but it's, I guess, more horror movies are being made. We would look at to, we need to have a look at statistics. That would be interesting.
Not
But
only horror, but elevated horror, as it is called
oh yeah,
nowadays.
true. Yes,
Horror that is done well and is very popular.
body horror. Why that's more popular is maybe because I don't know if we're still in this like sort of political correct era, but
Mhm.
yeah, always the shock of seeing things that are I I don't know out of the norm or
Mhm.
is something interesting to see, and that's why they resonate with audiences.
Mhm. Yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, if we're talking about substance, this is a very clear association with the kind of the obsession with the youth and the body and the perfection of it. And, obviously, this is very clear. Not all body horror films are that specific or that clear about what exactly they're referring to. But yeah, I mean, it's still interesting that this is what people what we've been talking about and what is seems to be important for a lot of creators.
I mean, perfection. I mean, body perfection, and I think the Frankenstein talks a little bit about living forever. So those are things that I can see in the kind of content I consume. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I can see that maybe willingly or unwillingly that's something these movies address a little bit because it's something that's on everyone's mind or part of their daily life. I wanted to talk a bit about frequent collaborators of Guillermo's.
Hmm.
because yeah, while I was watching the movie, I didn't realize it, but later going back, there are quite a few people that are sort of repeats. For example, his director of cinematography, I think he has worked with him on almost all of his movies. That's Dan Laustsen, I think is how you pronounce it. I didn't get a chance to find who is his production designer because I would think that's also someone.
I wanted to say the costume designer as well because I mean I don't remember her name, but I wanted to actually check if she was working with him on other films as well, which I would expect that he would stick with the same people
Yeah,
that kind of share the vision.
I would also expect that. Then, yeah, people who or actors who he worked with previously are Christoph Waltz, who also did a role in his Pinocchio movie, and then Charles Dance, who plays the blind man in Frankenstein and was Geppetto in Pinocchio.
I mean, I must say, Christoph Waltz is just like becoming this kind of Dr. Van Helsing-esque character everywhere, just like the sidekick to every character in Hollywood. If
That's
I just
true.
it just makes me think of he was in Frankenstein, then he was also in Dracula,
Yeah,
and then he is also in Django as kind of the same type of character. I don't know. He has a
yeah,
very
yeah.
particular niche for him now.
Yeah, I mean, regarding this movie, I was also thinking that some of these characters or actors that were cast in roles that they had previously done or something similar. So, like you mentioned, Christoph Waltz, who did this yeah sort of assistant type of character, and in Pinocchio he plays this fox who is also very flamboyant.
I think the person you didn't mention, but definitely deserves to be mentioned, is Doug Jones, who is, I think, in quite a few of Del Toro's films, specifically for the type of character he can create, because he is very slender and he's very tall. So he is very famous for portraying some of the characters in Del Toro's work. In The Shape of Water, he was the I don't remember how it was called or how he was called in the amphibian. Yeah, the amphibian man. Um, he was also in both of Hellboys. He was the Pan in Pan's Labyrinth. So, yeah, that is, I think, also the actor that is very often coming up there.
Yeah, I think he wasn't in this movie, if I'm not mistaken.
In this one, no. Yeah,
No. But you talked about his height, and I think in that regard, Jacob Elordi makes a lot of sense because he's also very tall. He's almost two
that's true.
meters tall.
What I
Interestingly,
also, Mhm. Go ahead.
I read that Andrew Garfield was supposed to play the role of the creature, but then
Okay.
because of the SAG strike, there were some scheduling conflicts, and he had to drop out. And the costume or the makeup they had designed for 9 months, then they had like about, I don't know, a couple of weeks to redesign for Jacob Elordi. So that must
Right.
have been really stressful and challenging.
Hmm. I must say, I find it interesting and ironic that such a an actor, like a conventionally.
Yes.
I will own up this word, even if it doesn't exist. Sounds a bit weird now, but conventionally beautiful actor is playing Frankenstein. I don't know if it's ironic, if it's supposed to be irony, or if it's supposed to be transcending kind of the beauty. I still have not made my peace with that or haven't decided which way it leans.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting angle. I mean, they play a bit into his features, and I think it works that he's. I mean, he is like a creature and like a zombie, if you want to put it differently, but still very like sculpture like,
Hmm.
and I think the attractiveness works also in relation to Elizabeth's character, right? And that
Hmm.
he's well, not only in relation to that to her character, but that he is, yeah, a bit transcendent, and that he's a creation.
All right. Anything else you wanted to say about the production?
Production wise, well, this was one of Guillermo's dream projects that he wanted to do for a long time. So different points of his career, he was approached or had a version of it. And now he got to do it. So yeah, he mentioned in some of the interviews I saw that the book was very influential to him. And yeah, now he finally got the chance to make the movie.
Hmm. And I think for him, it's also almost autobiographical in a way because he talks in all the interviews that they made after the release, he talks a lot about the theme of father and son and just fatherhood in general and passing on the kind of the trauma and the toxicity. Yeah, so I think that was very important for me while I was watching it. That was definitely something that touched me in this
Yeah,
film.
for sure. Maybe something I forgot that is the makeup process for Jacob Elordi, and apparently it took up to 10 hours. So he had
Wow.
to be on set at 10 p.m. and then it took 10 hours. So basically he spent the whole night awake and then he had to go film. So that seems like insane. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it's really worth it. I mean, actors usually do mention that it helps them to get it into character, but that schedule seems like that seems like torture. And
Hmm.
and at this point I'm wondering if that's worth it. I don't know if this 10 hours is correct. I saw this here on IMDb. And for example, I looked up Skarsgård in Nosferatu, how much his makeup process took, because he also had a full body makeup process on some scenes, and that took around 6 hours.
Oh, okay.
So so that's a bit more manageable, but 10 hours seems like a lot.
Yeah, but also if you think about it, Nosferatu's makeup, I feel like is more convoluted, more specific than Frankenstein's monster makeup because he also doesn't go through such a drastic bodily transformation in the sense like to make Nosferatu out of Bill Skarsgård, I feel like there was a lot more involved somehow, at least the way that it looks. But then again, I mean, I think in both of the films, not every scene requires that.
True. But I think Jacob Elordi has more scenes where he is like, where his full body is shown.
Hmm.
And yeah, applying all those layers of skin and so forth. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what took so long. But yeah,
Hmm.
10 hours is, wow, it's like not for me.
Well, good thing we're not doing it. Good
Yeah.
thing it's Jacob Elordi's job.
We said there aren't really any major spoilers here for this movie. But before we get into some details, maybe what did you think of the movie?
From about the halfway point of the film, I was crying for the rest of the time. I was just crying pretty much all the way. I was so upset. It was really so upsetting to watch this abuse that was going on. It was really, really sad.
Mm,
So yeah, that's what I think. But I really enjoyed the film in general, and I think it really made me think about a lot of things that we will partly discuss today. I think also I must say I'm a bit intimidated by the amount of things that we could discuss about this film. And today, I must say, I have a lot or even
Yeah.
too much to talk about. So maybe we won't even cover all of it. But I did like it very much. I really enjoyed it, which almost surprised me in a way because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm a bit jealous of you because I didn't have that emotional connection that you had. I wish I was crying and during the
I
movie.
wish I was crying.
I mean, I still liked it. I think, well, here I give this point towards the cinephile. So here I split up my viewing in two sessions. So maybe
Mhm.
that's why I didn't connect as much. The first session was at night, and then the second, I watched the second half during the day. So probably watching it at night is a better experience. Yeah, I just didn't have that much of an emotional connection, which I guess I had more with Pinocchio. I still like the movie, and I think the prologue actually, I think that was amazing. I was completely immersed in it, and I thought it was beautiful and haunting and like sort of gothically visualized, like we mentioned. Yeah, I had the maybe there were some things which I don't know didn't quite work for me, but yeah, it's just I was expecting a deeper emotional connection, which I didn't have, but maybe at some other point I will.
Mhm. Well, for me, the main theme of the film, as I think we already kind of prefaced, was the relationship of the father and son, plus kind of the fatherhood in general. And for me, this is a topic that is kind of maybe as ironic as it sounds, because I am a woman, it is important for me and I think about it quite a lot and I really think about the masculinity and I take my time to kind of dissect this topic. I read a lot about it and for me it's very important to talk about and to watch something or read something about it. And this is one of those things that again made me think of it. And I cannot really kind of abstract myself from it and distance myself from it. So it makes me really emotional when I see those things. And then where I see men failing at at, well, those roles that they can have, but it's just not it's almost through the layers of kind of patriarchy, it just disappears under the toxicity and the trauma that men inflict on each other and on themselves. So that's, I guess, why I had this connection with the film.
That's really good point. You mentioned the patriarchy and toxicity, and I think that's why this era and this novel makes a lot of sense because, yeah, we see Victor's relationship to his father, and
Hmm.
that's like this Charles Dance, another here we have two
Hmm.
Game of Thrones actors
Yeah.
with yeah, who plays this yeah, again, like I mentioned, also a role we've seen a similar role to what we've seen in Game of Thrones. So
Hmm.
very strict father, abusive, and I guess at that time, like 19th century, that was common. I
I
think
mean, it's still very common, you know. I can't really say that we are now past that. There is still
mhm.
definitely people that exist that are like that.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, I would like to believe that we have mostly moved on for that, but it's still happening, I would guess.
I would like to believe it, but
Yeah.
believing and seeing the reality, unfortunately, this doesn't match. Just so before we forget it, as per
Mhm.
usual, I think we will forego the plot recap or a very detailed one. First of all, as always, we say come listen to us when you've seen the film, first of all. And second of all, I feel like a lot of people already know the story of Frankenstein, at least a little bit. And I just think that there's no major spoilers that we can give, but probably there will be some about the specific adaptation of Frankenstein. So if you haven't seen the film, please go ahead and watch it before you listen to us talking about the film.
So, any other theme that you wanted to dive into?
I well, I mean, I think that theme is big enough in itself. But I also wanted to say I don't think I have ever made as many notes as I have for this film. I mean, I made a lot of notes on Nosferatu and Sinners, but I made them like post factum already, so already after I watched the film. And this time I made a lot of notes while I was watching the film, which is for me kind of a testament to the way that the the way that the film is written tells you a lot about what's going on. And I love that there is this conversation between the film and you as a viewer. And a lot of the dialogue that is happening is kind of is talking to you as the viewer, plus it's talking to you in the future, as it's like it mentioned something in the beginning, and then you can go back to it from when you are done with the film and it reads differently, if
Do
you
you
know
have
what
an
I mean.
example of that?
I have a lot of examples of that,
Just give me
but
one.
I think one that I keep thinking about is um, Victor saying, in seeking life, I created death. And what it makes me think of all the time is the fact that when first of all, the symbolism of red, which I think there is quite a few, the color red appears quite a few times. And in the beginning, I thought, because Victor says he associated his mother with life, with just absolute personification of life. I actually think he's not really right when he says that, because we don't really even see her life. All we see is her death. And I think that's what it actually symbolizes, because every time we see red is death in the film. And life, I think, is actually symbolized through green, that is mostly through Elizabeth. She wears a lot of green. And I think, again, the moment when she dies in the end, it's again red on white, you know? But also, when people are being buried in his family, so his parents, his mother and his father, they get this kind of mask on top of their coffins. And the next time we see this mask is the Medusa face in the castle, the room where he creates the monster. And I think this is again kind of the reference to death, and this line that in seeking life he created death. And I thought that was just great. Like, it's just a great line of dialogue between the creator, the director, and you as the viewer, if you notice that.
Yeah, that's a great theme here that you pointed out. I have multiple things to say about that. I think three. Where do I start? So, yeah, the color. Yeah, the color symbolism is quite prominent or very striking. And yeah, you mentioned the color red as a symbolism for death. And yeah, the first time we see red is actually Victor's mom, who is wearing this red dress. And I guess there's a transition in there as well. Like, first, she symbolized life or joy for him, and then he was traumatized. That I think it's fair to say because of her passing, and then
Also, I think must be noticed here as well is that when he is wearing white, when he's a little boy and she starts bleeding in the scene before she dies, she marks him, right? There's red
yes.
palm prints on him from, like, she left that on him.
Yeah, the marking with the red happens a couple of times. You mentioned the Elizabeth's dress, and then I think also between, well, when the creature first comes to life and he cuts himself, and then also they sort of mark each other. And yeah, so I think after Victor's mom's death, then I don't know, it's from the same fabric, but I thought it was that he has this sort of scarf, it looks like it's the same material from his mom's dress.
That's true. And it's
Yeah,
almost like he's carrying it from that scene. He always carried it with himself, right? It's because it's like red on white, for me, it kind of symbolizes the loss of innocence in that moment, that it's just like the first interaction with death.
he also wears these red gloves, which is interesting because you can play with the idea of, okay, it's his gloves or his hands covered in blood. And well, the red actually also works with the sort of image. I read that Guillermo wanted to kind of create like a rock star image for
Hmm.
Victor, and I don't know, his hat, his hair, and red on white and black. That I think that yeah fits that purpose. You mentioned the masks of the parents when they die. I thought that design was beautiful, and yeah, they look similar to the Medusa design. And I also heard Guillermo talking about that he felt like the Medusa was a misunderstood um, figure, and that I don't remember his exact words, but yeah, he didn't see her as a bringer of death and more like a bringer of life, if I'm paraphrasing correctly. I guess that her the meaning of what his mother meant changes,
Hmm.
like his association with his mother.
Hmm.
That first she was very caring and the total opposite of his father. And then once she died, well, yeah, it's a trauma to him. At the beginning, I thought like, oh, he wants to bring her back in a way. But what you said with that line that in creating life, I created death.
Yeah,
Um,
and also I think the symbolism of the mother here is a bit connected also to the fact that she speaks French and nobody else speaks French. So there's this aspect of otherness even here. So, and he's also the only one who speaks to her. The father, we never see an interaction between the mother and the father, or do we?
no, I don't know. Well, not really.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
there's
I would say
yeah.
probably not really.
So we see that he gets his when Victor's mother is giving birth, that Victor calls for his father, and then he tries to sort of assist her, but we don't see what happens between them. I think that now I remember what the other thing was. The other thing was that actually Guillermo mentioned in his interviews that I think his mother died at childbirth, and
Really?
yeah,
All right. Well,
and
I mean, this is
that's
also the fact that Mary Shelley, when she wrote that, she was also plagued by miscarriages and death of her children, like newborns, basically.
yeah.
And plus probably postpartum depression too. So
Mhm,
this is generally the theme that goes through both the original and this work, I think, as well,
mhm.
the adaptation.
But yeah, here you have this association that death at childbirth, birth at life and death are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, for sure. And generally, I think this is, I'm not sure if it's like a very gothic theme or if it's just something that I associated with it, is the fact that death is part of life, and when life is, how should I put it? When someone is born through birth, death is introduced into life because this is yet another creature that now lives but will ultimately die. And so I think that is also a big topic that can be attributed to Frankenstein. Although in case of Frankenstein, there's only life.
Yeah, what did you think about that? That the creature is basically immortal or has multiple superpowers, that he's super strong and that he regenerates. I don't know if that was the case for other adaptations. What did you think about that?
I mean, I think it is the case because ultimately he is created from dead matter, right? So he cannot die in that sense. And the life is created artificially, so it cannot be taken by natural means. I think it is also the case for the other Frankenstein adaptations and for the original that he cannot die. And the fact that he is very strong and well, I mean, I wouldn't call them necessarily superpowers, but yeah, he has, I guess, some powers that make him stronger than a normal man. I didn't really look into it all that much. It's just, or like read into it. It's just part of the character, and I didn't think of it any further than just the surface level, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind that too much. I was just wondering if that was the case for other adaptations as
Mhm.
well.
I
Um,
mean, the fact that he cannot die, ultimately, it's like just the epitome of loneliness is that he is alone. He is born into this, he's not even born, he is created into the world where the first thing that he experiences is isolation and what do you call it?
Rejection.
Rejection. Yeah. The the way that I'm like trying to remember words here. Yeah, so rejection and isolation are the things that he is created into, right? And that's the first thing that he experiences. And that just it's just devastating to witness, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think in
Um,
that sense, his immortality only makes it, all the more palpable how horrible it is to live like that, to kind of not even live, but
yeah, the immortality also makes sense that by the end he asks Victor to create a companion for him. And well, yeah, loneliness in immortality, we've seen that in, like we
Mhm,
mentioned, other creature movies like
mhm.
different Dracula movies and others. Um, just a minor critique is I think his strength is uh, I mean, the creature's strength is portrayed a bit different in different scenes. I mean, it's all always related to the need of that scene or moment. So, like at the beginning, he can't really break that metal bar, and later he is able to move a giant ship. And the strength with which he throws away his attackers is also different types of strengths, but I mean, that's just a minor detail,
Well,
and
that's actually a good point because maybe now we can read into it. Now that you mention it, I kind of have a thought about it. The fact that the strength, what is the situation where you need to use physical strength?
I guess when he's being attacked or he needs to survive.
Exactly. So I think it is kind of almost born from the rage that he feels, right? And in the beginning, he still doesn't have that. I think it just grows exponentially. The more he kind of leans into it and really gets upset with the condition that he is in and the life that he is meant to live now, I think that's when it kind of blossoms into that. And that's when his strength also becomes, well, kind of grows, right? And
Hmm.
in the beginning, he still kind of believes Victor, he trusts him. And it's only at a certain time when he is still chained that he is kind of trying to, well, he is trying to rebel against it at some point, right? When he starts to lean into this angry demeanor and starts to show it to Victor, and Victor starts to get scared because before he is not really doing anything to scare Victor or to make him feel unsafe through his strength. I don't think he even knows what that would mean or what he could do with it. So I think it kind of makes sense.
I wanted to dive deeper into what you mentioned that he's born into isolation and rejection. And I think there it connects beautifully to that theme of fatherhood. And yeah, it's really interesting that it's basically Victor. You also mentioned this, that he's passing on his trauma from when he was a child
Hmm.
to the creature. And I had one scene in mind where I think it's after Victor's mom dies and he is in his father's studies where he used to learn about medicine and anatomy, and he picks up this, what's it called, this stick.
Hmm. I think it's
And
still while the mother is alive in that scene.
no, I think it's after, because he sort of mentions that, okay, now I was wondering if you remembered the words, because he says something, okay, now I'm going to do this my way, or but yeah, that's sort of for me his turning point, or maybe not so much turns into his dad, but he has this mission now that he wants
Hmm.
to surpass his father in a way, but he wants to create life out of death.
And coincidentally, I do have the words
Awesome.
in my notes. The father says, "No one can conquer death," and Victor says, "I will." So he's on a mission. And also, I must say, this line um, prefaces again the fact that all the men, or almost all, save for William, Victor's brother, and the creature, well, and like some minor characters as well, are narcissistic men. So the father is a narcissist, Victor is a narcissist, and um, um, Christoph Waltz's character, Hollander, is also a narcissist. And I think that is interesting that we are just put in this world full of narcissistic men trying to conquer life and death.
I don't know if I don't know if I would say that Victor is a narcissist.
Oh
I
yeah,
guess
he is for
it's
real. He
I guess
is.
for me it goes above that, that he is very vain, or that he is ambitious beyond limits, and yeah, obsessed. That I mentioned, that scene is for me, maybe that's when he sort of changes or turns. Well, I think before that he had this dream with this red angel that he interprets as a vision, that vision that he yeah, like you said, that he should change his perspective, and that he should well, goes on this mission to create life out of death. I said that he behaves like his father with once he creates the creature, and that transition I found a bit hard to believe or follow. Especially, I think once he creates the creature, his first interactions are very, um, yeah, endearing, or he seems very excited and caring. And then for me, it's quite abrupt how he changes his tone. I think once he realized that the creature is only able to say Victor. So for me, that switch between, yeah, first like amazement and I don't know, gratefulness, and then he quite suddenly
Mhm.
changes to this very authoritative and abusive sort of father figure. That, I don't know, for me there were a couple of scenes missing in between that. Maybe there were
Mhm.
some scenes that they filmed but they didn't include. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I must say I kind of agree. I don't think that it disturbed me all that much while I was watching, but I don't know. I kind of can imagine Victor behaving in that way because the first fascination, the first moment of fascination for him goes away really quickly, and then he is now faced with the dilemma of what did I create? What is that? Who is it? What am I? There's a lot of stuff, and probably. the patterns that he took with him from his childhood also overlap with a lot of it. And so then he again carries this legacy of trauma with him into this relationship, into the relationship with the monster or the creature, and becomes his father essentially, right? I don't know. I can see it, but I agree that maybe it could have been done in a more understandable way where you can see the transformation a little clearer.
Yeah, maybe it was also it had to do with, well, my thoughts were, what were his expectations of this process, or what was he expecting was the end result? And maybe the thing was
Yeah.
that he only expected to create life out of death, and then he didn't have a plan for
Hmm.
after that.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah,
I
once he
think this is
achieved that,
exactly the point.
he didn't care, or he was disappointed. I was thinking of, okay, what did he think he was going to create? Like, how should the creature look like? And then it's a bit similar again to his father, that his father sort of looked down on him because of his looks, and maybe the same applies to Victor in regards to the creature, that he had some expectations, and maybe he wanted to create an intelligent creature, but it seems like to him that this creature is really stupid. Yeah, so
Well, he has no patience for him, just like his father didn't have patience for Victor.
yeah, also the thing like you mentioned, that he's a narcissist, so it's all about him, and he doesn't care about other people. And so that's why he then shows some of these patterns that he maybe unconsciously took over from his dad, and is now living out
Exactly.
onto the creature.
Yeah. As it happens, I of course have the lines from the film. And about so after he created the creature, he talks about what's next or what he imagined to be the next step, I guess. And the fact is that he apparently didn't imagine anything. So he says the achievement was unnatural, void of meaning. No further language or development occurred. And he says there was no horizon left. And I thought that was interesting because the ship they are on, where this whole well, kind of the forgiveness and yeah, reconciliation is happening in the end, is the ship is called Horizon, right? So I think
Oh,
that there's
interesting.
again the dialogue of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but here what I can bring up this concept that I learned about recently, which is arrival's fallacy. That you think that a certain achievement will give you happiness, and once you arrive at that moment, then
Hmm.
that moment doesn't give you anything, or you're already looking for the next thing. So I guess that what's happening to Victor. And yeah, this process that Victor has in creating the creature, Guillermo mentioned that his role as a director is in lots of ways very similar to Victor in the process of creating a movie.
Hmm. Well, and also the one of other lines that Victor says to the creature is when he's kind of afraid from obviously the abuse is already starting, and the creature kind of recoils from him. And Victor says, "Are you afraid of me? I'm not going to hurt you. I made you." And it's just so strange to see that because it's like if you made him, it doesn't mean that you're not going to hurt him. You are actually doing it all the time. And it's just so, I don't know, it was really so upsetting to witness.
And I remember that line as well, and it's like, how can I analyze it? Yeah, that he's thinking about his role as a father, and that the father shouldn't
Hmm.
do this, but what ends up
Exactly.
happening is the complete opposite. or maybe it's like I said, also a bit subconscious, like how he's acting, he doesn't
Yeah.
realize it.
And I just also think this is a topic that I think a lot about, I think, is the whole concept of legacy and the fact that some people are really obsessed with the legacy in the sense of like the man in the family wants someone else to carry his name, and this is also a topic here because he's like, my father gave me that name. The story begins with Victor telling that, right, about his father and about his name and the name that he carries from his father, and then the creature kind of taking over in a way. And for me, this is um almost like some kind of a distorted vision of that word and the concept, because the name is not the only thing you want your child to carry. You want to carry, or you want the child to carry something good, I guess. The name in itself doesn't mean anything. But like your legacy as a person, your legacy as a father is, I believe, more important than just some name. The name can be anything, it doesn't matter. And this is what I see also here is that it's almost like the obsession of the legacy with the legacy is making them blind to the fact that they are abusing their children, their sons, into submission, into being a certain way, and it's just unacceptable for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, legacy also works really nicely in this 19th century setting, that legacy is what the fathers or society expects to, yeah, pass on, like the name, the reputation, the fortune. And what it ends up being is actually all the trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the connections that they have, that Victor's father passes on to him, and then Victor also passes on things, let's say, because I don't have a better word at the moment, but he passes on things to the creature. In the end, it ends up being something a bit more hopeful and an optimistic point of view, like this forgiveness that they have at the end. But for sure, he also passed on some of the trauma.
And there's the scene when the creature comes back and it's the evening of or before the wedding of William and Elizabeth, or the day when they are marrying, and the creature comes back, and the first thing out of Victor's mind is, are you here to thank me? You've survived and are now intelligent enough to have found me. And it's just like, you did nothing for this guy to survive in the real world. All he did was thanks to himself. Like him surviving, okay, partly is because he can't die, obviously, but also like the other part, him being able to communicate, him just generally having any like sense of self and um understanding of the world is not through any achievement of your own. It's he did that. All you did is give him life, but that's not enough to call yourself his father. You are nothing to him, technically, I would say. And that's again the same topic of where men expect that just because this this person got created from part of his DNA now makes him the great creator.
I wanted to say it exactly like that, but I think it's a great scene. I'm glad that you mentioned it because, yeah, here we can see his narcissism that first he was like, oh, I created something really stupid. And then he's like, oh, okay, that you're so intelligent now is just because of me. But also his like godlike ego plays into that he sees himself like as a creator, as a god, and then that he's, I don't know, not all powerful, but yeah, uh, puts himself on that level. I wanted to talk a bit about the creature because I thought it. I guess I'm a little bit like Elizabeth because I found him fascinating, and I think, well, Guillermo, I guess, is also a bit in that regard like Elizabeth because he loves these creatures. Yeah, what I really liked the first moments with the creature, the way he moves, and then that he's very innocent and naive, and he's basically like a child, and everything is a wonder to him. So I love how Elordi sort of plays that in his movements, that he's also very crouched down and he takes a look at everything. So he's like a blank canvas. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's amazing. And it's a child, and Victor doesn't realize that it's a child. He thinks it's a stupid thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, he also, how I read into that is he misinterprets how the creature uses the word Victor. For me, it's as if he's saying dad,
Hmm.
but to Victor, it's like, oh, he's stupid. He doesn't have any
Hmm.
uh intellectual capacity.
Hmm. Well, there are actually also two things that I think about when there's a lot with name, right? With the name, there's a lot of connection. One of the things that going back to what we already discussed, what I forgot to mention also is one of the lines is, "My father gave me that name and it meant nothing." And then he asks the creature to say his name again, and he says, when it meant the world to you." So I don't know. It's just I love the dialogue in this film, as you can see. It's just like you can read so well into a lot of things. I really wonder though how much of it comes directly from the original and how much is original for the adaptation.
Yeah, but that line is beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes you cry. I think that
yeah, for
it
sure.
signifies a lot of things. Is beautiful, and it plays into it what I mentioned as well, like the meaning of the word as it meaning dad.
Hmm. And also another thing before we continue, another thing is when he says he already is ready to burn the castle down. He already set everything up, and then he comes and he says, "Say anything but this name."
Yeah, and then he says the creature says Elizabeth, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So he is kind of challenging him, like, he says, "Make me save you." He says Victor and he goes away, and then he still says Elizabeth and he still goes away. So it's just like his mind was made up this whole time. His mind was made up when he was killing him, as much as it was made up when he was, I don't know, doing anything else, like behaving. Because when he first created him, he chained him pretty much instantly. He never
Mhm.
let him just like walk about or do anything. He just straight away chained him. That was his first reaction. So the abuse was already there in the very beginning. It's not like he changed to become worse. I mean, in a way he did, but the this instinct for abuse was always there almost because of the way that he was brought up.
I wanted to push back a little bit that he didn't have second thoughts because after he says Elizabeth, well, I guess that triggers something in Victor because he had this connection with Elizabeth. So maybe here he's like jealous or, well, he feels like attacked.
Hmm.
But we actually do get to see that after he had set fire to the place, that he when wants to get back into the castle and save the creature. We don't know why, what his intentions are. Maybe it's just because he doesn't want to destroy the evidence that he achieved what he set out to do. But in any way, he goes back, and then, well, after that, he is blown back by the explosion and loses his leg. So maybe that saying Elizabeth might have given him second thoughts on,
Hmm.
we don't know of what nature, but yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, you were mentioning that Victor's first reaction is to chain the creature, and that was what I was saying. That for me, that is a bit sudden, that transition. And I was just thinking about the moments before that, where he actually is really caring with the creature, and it looks like a couple of weeks happen between the creation and him chaining him, because we also get that scene where Victor is shaving the creature's head.
Hmm.
So that implies that some weeks have passed between the creation and, well, their first interactions. Thinking about this shaving of the head, maybe Victor is shaving the head of the creature because he doesn't want to view the creature as a human being, and
Hmm.
the creature growing human hair makes him more human. I really love the scenes. Well, the creature's tail, we didn't mention that
Hmm.
we get different points of view. We get Victor's point of view, and then we get the creature's points of view. And I really love that whole story of basically coming of age movie of the creature, or the growing up part of the creature. And this is very reminiscent to Pinocchio. So the interaction between the creature and the blind man, and like I said, David Bradley, who plays the blind man, also played Geppetto in the Pinocchio movie, and that relationship is very endearing, and how they become friends through stories as well, which I think is also a
Hmm.
very important aspect of the movie, that we connect through stories, in particular the ship's captain and Victor and the creature, and how stories change our points of view of things that happen. But yeah, that whole arc of the creature growing and learning and becoming its own person is, I thought that was fascinating. I don't know. I really enjoyed watching it. It was so pleasant and endearing, and yeah.
I think also where it is very one of the stories that is fascinating that it was also included. I mean, I think it also is in the original Mary Shelley story, um, is Paradise Lost, because in a way it's almost analogous to the story of Frankenstein, and especially in this particular adaptation, the story of the father and the rebelling son creating against something else. And Mary Shelley had a line from Paradise Lost as an epigraph to her Frankenstein novel. And the lines were exactly where Adam asks the creator why he was created. And he says, I never asked to be here, and now I am not, well, I now have to live through this. I am now condemned to live this life of pain, basically. And that's where the Frankenstein's monster also finds, he sees himself in this story and in those lines. And essentially, I kind of feel like maybe it is you can associate this Paradise Lost story with the story of Victor Frankenstein and his father and his son, in the sense that there was the creator, the God, then there was Satan, who kind of tempted Adam and Eve, and then Adam is questioning why he is meant to live this life. He never asked to be here, and now he has to go through this. Um, yeah, so I think this is also a very important part where it's not a big moment in the film, but it's a very telling moment, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think Adam asked God to create Eva because he was feeling alone, and the same thing happens
Hmm.
with the creature.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
also where he gets the idea from, is probably from this story, right? Because he wants to share the loneliness with someone else and be less lonely through this otherness, you know?
I wanted to ask you this because I haven't made my mind up. Is what did you think of Elizabeth's character?
I feel like Elizabeth's character is more of a vessel here. It is a more feminine energy in the story, which is kind of full of men mostly. So I guess she does represent motherhood and this an ability to see the creature from a different perspective, not just as this creature of ambition, basically, that something that was created through this rebellion against death and ambition to be above life and death, but as you said, as a child, as a creature that is new to this world and was not born through normal natural means, but is now, well, now has to exist in this world. And I don't know if she is, she's not super prominent, I feel like. She is prominent in a particular part of the story, but then not anymore. And I, for me, it was fine. I cannot say that I wanted to see more of her or that I thought that she was underrepresented in the film or she didn't fulfill her role. I think she fulfilled her role. And for what the film is trying to say and for what the theme is, the main theme, I think it was fine. But I know that at least some reviews that I have read um, say that there is it's almost underrepresented or underutilized her character. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree that it's more of a role or character and not so much as a complete person, if you will. Like Victor in that, well, he also has more screen time, but he's more fleshed out, and the creature as well. So I guess you can compare her to her uncle, is it? Christoph Waltz, who plays her uncle. They have a specific role in the movie,
Yeah.
but she's not that fleshed out. But to what you said, that she is sort of represents this curiosity and this perspective of well, seeing an outcast in a different way, and that's exactly what Guillermo said in one of his interviews, that that's what she does, and in that regards, she is represents Mary Shelley a bit, that she was very modern in some aspects, and in well, yeah, seeing uh resignifying people who are different and wanting to learn about them, having a curiosity for them. Maybe what was a bit too long was her, or after watching the whole movie, is her relationship with Victor, her sort of romance, because in the end, I don't know if that ended up mattering too much.
Hmm.
So maybe that could have been like it is a montage, but maybe it's a bit, in hindsight, it's maybe a bit longer than it should be, or doesn't feel as relevant. Uh, yeah, what is relevant is her interaction with the creature and with Victor as well. I think it's also interesting regarding her character. We mentioned the colors, that I think once she sort of starts hanging out with Victor, at the beginning, I think the first time we see it, could it be that she's dressed in this blue, like peacock sort of outfit? I don't know if that has any meaning behind it, do you know?
Mm, no, I didn't. Again, I didn't really read into this. It's not necessarily also a peacock, right? It's just this feathery,
Yeah,
just feathers on her, like a
yeah.
headpiece, right?
It looked like the back to me were like there were wings as well or something.
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, so first is blue and then she has like a green outfit, but the more she interacts with Victor, there are more red elements added to
Hmm.
her dress, like I think a hat and something else.
Hmm.
And then once they start growing apart again, then she goes back to green.
What is
And
also always her symbol, or not the symbol, but always what she has on her character is the cross or the rosary, I guess you call it.
yeah, I think
And it
that's
is
the word.
also red. And I don't know if that's generally maybe more the symbolism for Victor, in the sense that he associates this religion and the angel, right, with life, what he initially probably thinks as life, but then turns out to be death. Yeah, so maybe that also, at least I definitely definitely noticed that when I was watching. But don't have an exact answer as to what they were trying to say with that symbol.
But I think a real important scene is her death, and it shows to what lengths Victor goes. I mean, when he has this confrontation with the creature, that he grabs the gun and he ends up shooting the woman that he loves at some point, and even his brother. He's sort of responsible for the death of his brother. So his insanity, madness, obsession makes him completely blind to the people around him.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's sad to see.
Hmm. And eventually, William, his brother, calls him out on it, right? Because he says that Victor is ultimately the monster, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Finally, somebody says it.
That was also, I think, one uh, quote that I saw a lot of people were talking about, and yeah, totally, totally true. Um, yeah, there are some more like more technical aspects I wanted to talk about. For example, the design. I mean, there are two great big set pieces. One is the lab, and the other one is the ship. And yeah, those are amazing. For me, I don't, for me, the ship especially was amazing because when they're inside in the cabin, that looked so lived in,
Hmm.
and it goes together with cinematography and how they lit those night scenes. I think we get to see the ship mostly during the prologue when they are being attacked, and that looked amazing. Those night scene, and with the natural light, I think from the torches and stuff. I thought that those looked so cool, and when they're in the cabin of the ship as well, it looked so lived in and of that era. Yeah, and the lab, of course, is that is really a Guillermo set because well, we have the a lots of props and the creature like crouching down. I think actually that was his home or his lab, his yeah. But uh, yeah, I mean this amazing set. What
Hmm. Hmm.
I think he also mentioned that they have a lot of circular designs, like those batteries, or I don't know what they're called in the movie, those green batteries that take in the electricity have a circular design, and then the window, and you mentioned the Medusa, and that
Hmm.
sort of relates to how the story is told, like full circle.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
True. You know, that made me now think those coils that they use, the colors are again green and red.
oh, true. Oh wow, yeah. Yeah.
I
um
didn't think about it before, but now that we were talking about the color symbolism.
Maybe what, I don't know if that appears in the movie, but since it's fall here, that's also the transition from summer to fall, like leaves change to green to red. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that's shown in the movie, but also that transition from life to death. Yeah, the cinematography I really enjoyed. I mentioned that night scene, but when they are at the estate of the Frankensteins, and that's an actual castle in London, no, not in London, but in England somewhere.
Mhm. In the
And
beginning, you mean?
there's, yeah, there's one scene where Victor and his father, I think also his mother, are sitting at the table, and there's light coming in through a window, and I thought that looked beautiful, like a painting. I don't know from which era, but it sort of gives it like a golden glow and accentuates this uh idea that it's like a noble family. I thought that was really cool. The other thing is the creature's eyes, and a lot of scenes where it's sort of dark, and then we can see one eye which is sort of blinking, sort of reddish. I don't know how they achieved that effect, but also like it's really cool.
I feel like I focused so much on the dialogue and the visuals, of course, as well, that I didn't even pay attention to a lot of things that I would normally pay attention to.
Yeah,
But speaking of visuals, actually, what I wanted to say is despite all the symbolism and despite the colors and despite the production design and the costume design, I feel like it was a bit subdued in comparison to some other Del Toro films because it's not as like flashy almost as some of his other films were. I might be wrong though, but it's just
Yeah.
was kind of my impression.
No, but totally. But I think that that works in favor of the movie, that it
Hmm.
doesn't stand too out, and that it's anchored in, I guess, some period reality from the 19th century. So I guess that adds to the immersion and to the credibility of the story. But yeah, I agree that maybe it doesn't stand out as much as in other movies. I think a good comparison would be Shape of Water, because I think there it's also like, is it like 1950s in America, but we also have well, yeah, the creature design and lots of things that are, yeah, fantasy elements. But yeah, maybe in that movie it stands out more. But in this one, I think it's, yeah, maybe a bit more subtle even.
Hmm.
The other important player, we mentioned it already, is the script. It's also, it doesn't stand out, but it's actually a very well written script. And you highlighted some of the lines, and next to or besides the lines, some great lines of dialogues that the characters have. It's, I really enjoyed in some moments how it was written. In Shakespearean is the wrong word, but the sentence structure or choice of words seemed very adequate or to that era, and I really enjoyed the language of the movie. I have one more closing thought, but maybe you have something to
Are we
add.
closing?
No, well, it's up to you. Do you have anything?
I feel like there's still so much we can talk about, but I mean, we talked about a lot already. Maybe just something, another theme that I feel like we should probably talk a bit about is the fact that otherness does not inherently make you monstrous. And I think this film reflects a lot on what makes us human and what makes someone a monster, and that it's not as clear cut as it may seem, because the monster ultimately turns out to be the human. So Victor is the monster in that sense because of well, the act of creating this life. Um, and the monster is not the monster because he's just different, but he was put into this world that is already, even without his involvement, violent. That's what he also reflects a lot on, right? When he is looking at this family that we, by the way, also didn't really talk that much about. He watches the wolves attack the sheep, he watches the humans attack the wolves, and he reflects on this um, hatred and violence. And also the first interaction that he ever has with a different creature, with the deer is killed, you know? And I think this is also an overarching theme, how violence is inherent to men, to humans, and how awful people can be to each other. And again, this is one of those other things that just made me so upset throughout the whole film.
Yeah, but otherness is a very precise word to describe it, and it applies maybe in some aspects to what's happening in America today, but in other cultures as well. But yeah, also the line that you mentioned, that the creature says that it's, I don't know the exact words, but sort of like, we rely on violence to survive, or because other peoples are different. And here in this movie, some characters are um, monsters because they're different. They're viewed as monsters because they're different.
Mhm.
But the people who are the actual monsters are defined because of their actions.
Hmm. The way that he says it is the hunter did not hate the wolves did not hate the sheep, but the violence between them felt inevitable. This was the way of the world. It will hunt you and kill you for being the way you are or for being who you are. So it's just so sad.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Imagine being born into this world and those are the first things that you learn.
Yeah,
Those are just like the first few things that he learned when he kind of went into the world, when his creator abandoned him and betrayed him. It's just horrible. But yeah, I think it also is very timely, as you said, for a lot of things that are happening in this world right now. I think the otherness and generally how people treat each other. I mean, it's always been like that. Probably there's nothing new in this world. Also, violence towards each other is nothing new. But you would think that by a certain point we will learn something, but we don't seem to learn anything about anything and about like treating each other better and not judging each other based on just a few factors that literally don't mean anything. So yeah, I
yeah,
think at least for that, this is definitely a commentary on a lot of things that are happening right now.
yeah. I don't know if nothing has changed since the 19th century. I would believe, and in Europe, I feel like at least regarding other cultures that, or here in Zurich at least, people are quite tolerant. But yeah,
I I
it's
think
still
what you shouldn't forget, like this is what I think about when I consume some content about, for example, toxic masculinity, as I said, and my eyes open to the fact that, oh, it exists and it is very much everywhere. It's all over the place. And just because you don't see it like readily available to to you where you are, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And in Switzerland, we're in a very good position that we are very sheltered from a lot of problems in the world. And I think, yeah, this is probably the reason why we may think that the world has gotten better, but in a lot of aspects, yeah, I think politically speaking, we are in a very heated world right now. So, and it's not that much better than it was in the 1930s. And we didn't come that far away from this. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
well, regarding toxic masculinity, I can see that maybe that's something like you said, that something it it happens, but sometimes you don't realize it. And maybe for me at least that could be the case that I'm blinded sometimes or that I don't see it. Yeah, for sure. I love I love the shot of the creature standing on the horizon or that we see the horizon. I think that's the most beautiful shot of the movie, just seeing it like the ice, the sun, the silhouette of the creature. And I wish the movie would have lingered on that longer because I feel like it's very short. But it's actually used effectively, I think, because there are two moments, if I remember correctly. The first time is when the creature is chasing Victor through the snow, and that we don't know exactly where it is, but where the ship is as well. And then we have it, I think, at the end of the movie and it's a flipped shot, and it's the creature looking towards the horizon. So, like we also already talked about, with a sort of newfound optimism, and in that moment that the creature forgave Victor for what he did. So yeah, narratively used quite effectively, but I just could watch that, have that as a background or something. It's awesome, man.
You know, there is one scene, I mean, probably there's more, but the one scene that I really had to go back and rewatch was the scene where he asks Victor to light the dynamite stick and then he looks at him, he's like, run. I thought this is the scene that I could rewatch multiple times and it would be great every time. Because there's like this moment also where first of all, obviously the fact that he gives him a chance to kill him because he doesn't enjoy it just as much Victor doesn't enjoy it, and like this whole chase, um, and then the fact that he already kind of broke his legs and completely destroyed him, and the smile that he gives him when he tells him to run, it's just it's the best. I love it.
Yeah, that's a very funny and iconic moment, and also very uh, shows how threatening the creature can be. For me, also, you mentioned it already, but the last lines that the creature and Victor have, and I wanted to point it out because it talks about forgiveness, right? And that's also one of the themes that Guillermo has in a lot of his movies, like these Catholic themes.
Hmm.
But I think that is something really important in this day and age, or something that I found really difficult because, like we said, like we are different, and sometimes the things we do, we end up hurting people, or I don't know, doing things that, yeah, today with this society that's very judgy, that yeah, sometimes we do things that are not good, let's say, or I don't have other words how to describe it. But then for me, I think forgiveness is so important, or is so, it's also very difficult, but I think it's such an important value nowadays that it's beautiful.
Yeah, but also the interesting thing about it is that is one of the few things that is different between the original novel and the film, because in the original it's the monster who wants forgiveness and he seeks it out, and ultimately doesn't get it because Victor dies before he can forgive or actively forgive, let's say, the monster. And in this case, there is that moment. It does happen. I think it was very important also for Del Toro to actually show the forgiveness, because that's exactly what the idea of this whole film was going to be about. And the fact that he changes it and it is Victor who has to seek forgiveness, And to be honest, for me, it's really, I have a question here to the original, because from the story, the way that it was told in the film, I have never read the novel, but the story that I know from film is makes me question what would be the forgiveness that the creature is looking for. I don't see it. I don't see why he needs it, because what is there to forgive? And I can see totally why it should be Victor who needs to seek forgiveness from the creature. And he also then says to the creature, you should forgive yourself into existence, right? So it's more about forgiveness that you give to your father and forgiveness that you give to yourself because of this whole guilt of the existence in that form and in general. Like, I don't know, I guess existence comes with a certain degree of guilt and depending on the circumstances, maybe.
It makes, like, forgiveness, it makes a lot of sense in this movie, and I don't know how it is in other versions or in the book, but uh, the arc in this movie, it's also like very gratifying at the end to see that moment that, okay, Victor has this switch in perspective, and he asks for forgiveness, and there's growth there. So yeah, this ends on a, I would say, very optimistic note.
Yeah, so we still found quite a bit to talk about before or after we said closing thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking about this movie with you. Like I said, I'm jealous of you because you had that emotional connection. I guess now I have a bit more of an emotional connection because of the things we talked about. But yeah, I could definitely see myself rewatching this movie. I hope I do, or at least I will, just because of those moments that I really enjoy. Oh, one more thing, fun fact for you, but I don't know if if you knew that, but you know who plays the captain of the ship?
The captain or the other guy? Because the captain, I don't know.
The captain.
Tell me.
That's Lars Mikkelsen.
Ooh,
That's Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
nice. But do you know who
Yeah,
plays the I don't know, like a skipper or what would you call it? I don't know what you call
yeah,
this other guy. The sidekick of the captain.
the officer or something.
Yeah, that's Nikolai Likas that we know from, well, now you know from The Last Viking. I love
Uh,
this actor. He's one of my favorite actors. Yeah, but also again, just so I mention it again, I am really excited to see The Bride by Maggie Gyllenhaal because it again is gonna talk about more or less the same topic, and Frankenstein is played by
God.
our Lord and Savior, Christian Bale.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that could be
love Christian
interesting.
Bale, but yeah,
Yeah.
also the fact that it is the feminine, the female perspective, and we already saw a little bit of that in, I mean, not a little bit, quite a lot of it actually in Poor Things, and the deconstruction of this like feminine and conformity and all that. And I think it's going to be interesting. Really hope it's going to work out and it's going to be great.
Then, if that's all for today, then thank you for listening, and let's put the bunny back in the box.
I think this is going out of control, to be honest. But no, let's continue with that.
Okay, bye.